Jesus is my rock, and that's how I roll. Welcome to another episode of California Preaching. Okay, you're wondering what's on my head right now. This is a very glamorous hat, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very, very glamorous hat that I bought at a flea market, and yet, of course, I look like the flying nun. I was reminded of this the other day, and I want to share it with you, and it might come as a little bit of a surprise, but God's not recruiting winners, right? He's not recruiting the people who are like high achievers and, who really think they understand life and they feel very intelligent and they feel like they have this all figured out. No, God is recruiting people who are on their knees, in need, crying out for Him, understanding that they are powerless and that they are absolute. Oh, there's writing in the sky. What does it say? Scrub in out loud. Scrub in out loud. Is that a message of some sort? I think we would all agree that that is a very strange thing to see written in the sky. Scrub in out loud. But the only thing I can apply that to is inside out cleansing. Like cleanse from the inside, get scrubbed, and scream out loud to God. Get a good scrub because only God can truly defunkify you. It's true. I'm going to do us all a favor and I'm going to take the hat off, okay? The hat's going off. What is that smell? I hate exhaust. There's nothing I hate more than exhaust. The Bible says that God is love, and that's what He does. He gives us love lenses. He gives us the ability to see things through His eyes. I really hope that my husband is watching this right now because I want to make a public apology to you. Yes, that's right. The honest truth is that I really feel that when you've been with somebody, and this is not me making excuses, but I really do feel that when you've been with somebody for decades, it's really easy to fall into destructive patterns with your partner. And there is absolutely no doubt that Billy and I have fallen into destructive patterns. And I'm not speaking for him. I'm speaking for myself. I have fallen into destructive patterns with my husband. And I haven't been so kind, and I haven't been so forgiving, and I haven't been so patient, and I haven't been so giving of myself in an emotional way. I feel like I have shut down in many ways. And, there's so many different variables for that. And I don't really want to get into all of it. But what I will share is that I feel like it's been unfair. It's been unfair to Billy the way that I have treated him. Yeah, I'm going to say it. I mean, honestly, I feel like I really dropped the ball. Listen, nobody's marriage is perfect, and I feel like my husband and I have something really, really, really special. All you got to do is continue turning it over to Jesus and trusting that He's going to heal and restore and refurbish my marriage, because even when I just started praying about it, suddenly I started seeing Billy with a different perspective, with the love lenses that I'm talking about. I had to grab my regular hat because that Hollywood 40s flip-flop hat was definitely not doing the trick. Okay, so I want to tell you guys something. Before I met Billy, and I was recording the Wilson Phillips record with Carney and Wendy, and I had no idea what was around the corner. I was dating a guy, and he was our guitar player for Wilson Phillips, and he did all the guitar stuff, brilliant stuff on the first record. And I was like madly in love with this person. And I think it's because, and this might sound really weird and gross, but he reminded me a lot of my own father. He was a rocker, and he was into drinking, and sometimes he'd come home with twigs in his hair and, a little white stuff coming down off his nose. And, we won't get too graphic here, but you get the picture. What's happening here? Love you. That's my sister, ladies and gentlemen. Gotta love the sister. We're staying together right now, and it's fun. We're roommating. She's in the main house. I'm in the villa. It's all very Three's Company, except I'm Jack Ritter. I mean, let's face it, I'm Jack Ritter. Anyhow, back to my story. So, if this guy had asked me to marry him, I definitely would have married him, which is a really frightening thought. I am absolutely 100% certain that that would have been an epic failure of a marriage, for sure. But I met Billy, and I remember thinking, he's so normal. he's so normal. The fact that he had like 2 parents, I mean, his father had passed away, but he was raised by 2 parents, and he went to the same elementary school, the same junior high, the same high school. He was the altar boy, you know, at his church. I mean, to me, I was just like, this is so bizarre. This is just so foreign to me. So after about a year of dating Billy, I was so in love and I was so certain that this was my husband that I went into the kitchen and I grabbed a piece of aluminum foil and I wrapped it up and made it into a ring and got down on one knee in front of him. He was just sitting there watching TV. You know, there weren't iPhones yet back then. And I got down on one knee and I proposed to Billy. I literally proposed to Billy and he said no. He said no. Well, he didn't say no. He just said, "Oh, you're so sweet. That is so sweet of you." And I was heartbroken and livid and disgusted, all in one ball of emotion. I felt very dejected. You know what I mean? Dejected, rejected. I did not know what to do with the no answer. Even though he didn't say no, he implied no. And I was mortified. I mean, literally, I wasn't used to, and we'll just be honest, I wasn't used to a guy saying no. I just wasn't used to that. So basically what ensued after that was just generations of power and control issues between me and Billy. Because I truly believe that the fact that he sort of dangled marriage over my head for like 2 years before he finally proposed. And I know that's not a long time. It was actually closer to 3 years. But I was just like, yeah, what's the problem? If you know I'm the one, because he'd always say, "Well, you know, I know you're the one. You're definitely the one, Chai." And I'd be like, "Well, if you know I'm the one, then why wouldn't you put a ring on my finger?" And it just sort of like snowballed. He has a different story about that, actually. I mean, this might sound a little strange, but he was definitely a Wilson Phillips fan, like uber fan, before he met me. He used to watch my videos and he thought I was like cute, and then he would listen to the radio when he was driving around, you know, in New York, and Wilson Phillips would be on the radio, and he would go from station to station trying to get like the next Wilson Phillips song. Like, it was adorable. You know, when he tells me this story, I just, you know, get all warm and fuzzy on the inside, because he really loved what we were doing. And so when he actually met us at the airport that day, yes, I met my husband at the airport, so strange. He sat right in front of us and he introduced himself to us, and I was just white as a ghost. And the reason I was white as a ghost was because I had seen Backdraft just a few days earlier and thought that he was like the most gorgeous specimen. Hello, peace of Christ. And I thought he was just the most gorgeous specimen that I had ever laid eyes on. And, you know, so I was white as a ghost because I literally had just seen him. And there was more to it too. It's a really long story. And we should actually do a Cal Preach, like a chili, around how we met, because there were just so many strange coinkydinks that had to have been God. I mean, there's no way that God didn't have a plan for us to meet and get married. This is kind of turning into a How I Met Billy story, but it's fine. So once we got on the airplane, I was sitting in this really weird section of the airplane that was kind of like a train, because it had a door with a booth and 4 people could fit inside, almost like deli style. And then he was at the front of the plane where the regular seats were. And there was a woman inside my booth and she was crying her eyes out. So it was me, Carney, Wendy, and this woman crying her eyes out. And I was like, "Are you all right? What's going on?" And she was like, "Well, I just got married and we're on our honeymoon and my husband was put up front and I was put in here." And she was like, "As much as I love you guys, you know, I'm just really sad. I wanted to be with my husband." And I was like, "Oh, no, it's fine. Actually, I will go up front and you can send your husband in here to be with you." And she was like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's fine." And she was like, "No, I can't." I was like, "Honey, trust me, it's all good." So I went to the front of the plane, just pretending like, nothing was going on, and sat down in her husband's seat. And I passed Billy, and, I could tell that he was watching me. I could just feel it. It was like, like laser beam through my body, like X-ray vision. And I sat down and I started pretending like I was reading the newspaper, and it was, and I didn't know that it was like upside down. I mean, I'm sure it was upside down. And just a few moments later, who got up and pretended that he had to pee, went to the bathroom, came out, and he walked up to me and kind of gave me like a, and I look up and he goes, I wouldn't do anything. And I was like, excuse me? He started laughing. He was like, oh my gosh, let me try that again. And he goes, and he did it again. He did it a second time. So then he was like turning beet red. He could not get words out. And so he's like, I'm actually so embarrassed right now. I'm going to give this one more try. And he goes, I need to say it. I swear, I can't make this up. When we do the chili video about this, you're going to see for yourself. I am not lying. And so for the third time he does it, and I don't even know to this day what he was trying to say. I have no idea what he was trying to say. But then Carney had said to me when we were in the lounge area before we got on the plane, she said, I'm so mad at you. And I said, what? Why? And she said, come on. She goes, did you see the way he was looking at you? I said, no. And she said, China, he's going to ask you out before we land in New York. I was like, no, Karn, he's not. She was like, I will bet you. I will bet you he will. But she lost the bet because he asked me out at baggage claim when we landed. Little did he know I was going from New York the following day to Europe for a month. I gave him my number, and I went to Europe, and I kept checking my voice messages, nothing. Then I realized he had called this other number that I had, which I almost never used. I don't know how he got that number. But anyway, he left a message there, and then I called him back. And let me just put it this way. We went on a few dates, and they were good. They were really fine. But one of the dates that we went on, I said, I have to go to the bathroom. And I got up, I went to the bathroom. We were at a music club thing. It was really cool. And I come out of the bathroom a few minutes later, and he's standing right there. And he just grabs me, and he goes, can I borrow some lipstick? And he comes in for the kiss. And I was like, no. I was so upset because I'd been waiting for this first kiss. And this is how he approaches me. This is how he goes in for the first kiss. Can I borrow some lipstick? Girls, I don't know about you, but I was like, no, ew, no. Why did he just do that? I was a little turned off. But 3 years later, we were married, and here we are. 33 years been together. It's wild. And like I said earlier in this video, there are issues. Nothing is perfect. And, we have been through major trials. And I'm proud of us. You know what? We've been able to persevere. We've been able to come out the other end of it. And do I need to look at my side of the street, and do I need to clean up some stuff? Absolutely, 100%. No doubt about it. And I plan on trying to make those little changes in my marriage with the help of Jesus, because I can't do it alone. I can't do it alone. And for anyone who's listening to this, who's sort of identifying and feeling like, I could be kinder. I could be more compassionate. I could be more sensitive. I could be more patient. I could add a little more humor to our marriage. I could be, a little more generous with my time, with my emotional availability. I can show up in a different way in my marriage. And, I've heard it said that, love is like heaven, but it hurts like hell. Look, love's not supposed to hurt, but sometimes it does. It's not comfortable. Sometimes it's painful. And, if we're being honest, sometimes Billy struggles with the whole Jesus journey that I'm on. And, I think sometimes he feels like he's being upstaged by the big man. And, what can I do about that? That's a tough one. But I keep telling him, because he's like, doesn't that get exhausting to talk about Jesus all day? Doesn't it get exhausting to be like on this one way, flight with Jesus all the time? And I'm like, dude, this is where the action's at. This is it. This is where it's all happening. This is the most exciting, most exhilarating, most fulfilling place that I could be. Walking with Jesus, learning about Jesus, trusting in Jesus, my creator, my maker, and that's where I think he's just missing the mark a little bit. And that's where there's a little bit of, sort of separation and I need to really look at that because, I don't judge Billy. I don't. And people always say, give him his time. He'll come when he's ready. Stop pushing it. I'm really not. I never force him to read the Bible. I don't ask him to go to church. I don't, none of that. But the thing is that this is my life. This is my life's journey. This is my passion. This is what I plan on doing for the rest of my days, is loving Jesus, following Jesus, scattering the seed, ushering new souls into the kingdom with the Lord's help. This is my calling. This is it. And, I'm not ever going to renounce that. That's never going away. So we need to find a way to bridge the Yankees and Jesus. You know what I mean? We need to find a way to make that happen. And I couldn't be happier to be home because I'm going to make myself a tuna fish sandwich. I used to get those in my lunch at school and they were soggy and gross, but now I get to make them how I like them. Anyway, thank you for walking me home, and peace of Christ.